I think he's frustrated at the direction of the organization. He's frustrated with the protection he's gotten. And basically when he comes out and says what he does and doesn't shut the door on the idea that perhaps he could be traded, which, by the way, Seattle controls, even though Russell Wilson has a no-trade clause, it just continues to add to the intrigue that is this offseason.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating. Chris, we'll have it all covered right here on NFL Live every day at 4 Eastern. Mina, you're our resident Seahawks fan. What do you think about Russ's comments today? He's been all over the map on all this stuff.
Well, there's a lot to unpack, but I'll focus on what Russell focused on in his comments, which is the protection or lack thereof. He's been sacked nearly 400 times. I've watched every single one of them, winced at home. And I can tell you two things are true at the same time, which I realize is illegal in sports television, but I'm going to try to do it anyways. One of those things is that Russell Wilson, his style of play invites pressure. It's a good example, actually, of why sacks are not a good way to measure offensive line performance on their own, because if a quarterback holds on to the football, often he's more likely to get sacked. We've seen this with both Wilson and, say, Deshaun Watson. It's what makes them special. The other thing, though, is despite the fact that Seattle did rank in the top 10 in pass block win rate this season, it's not a good offensive line, right? It's not well built. I would say outside of the trade for Dwayne Brown, which worked out really well, he's been excellent in Seattle. The draft picks, the free agent signings, they've not been successful. For the most part, you wonder why they get their butts kicked by the Rams every year? It's because they can't block on the inside versus Aaron Donald. The interior protection in particular was a disaster in the playoffs. So while I don't think Wilson is blameless for that high sack number, I don't think he's wrong to want to throw his weight around a little bit and perhaps invest more, especially on the inside of the offensive line.
Three names come to mind for me: Pete Carroll, Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers. Why Pete Carroll? Because I think Russell Wilson's sick and tired of playing for a defensive-minded head coach that isn't a forward thinker when it comes to offensive philosophy. Why Tom Brady? Because Tom Brady left a good situation in New England to go to a better situation in Tampa Bay. And as these quarterbacks that are really good and really proven get older, they're going to look at their situations after what Tom did. Now, Tom was in a trade, whatnot, but he structured his contract to get out if necessary. And they're going to look at some of these older established quarterbacks and going, wait, there's a better situation for me somewhere. Can I make it happen? It was so much easier for Tom to do because he had a loaded deck than the things that I have to do weekly. And then Aaron Rodgers. Look at the scheme that Aaron Rodgers gets to play in. How come I can't get to play in that type of offensive scheme that's all that play action and movement and throw the ball downfield and easy throws and a good offensive line and a good run game? So I think there's a lot of smoke to this fire.
Listen, man, first, Russ ain't going nowhere. That's number one. The second thing is I was going to go a whole nother direction, and I know our producer, Mark, right now is scratching his head like, oh, boy, about to eat up some time. I'm going to tell y'all this, though. I do not like Russ coming out publicly and saying he needs to be protected better. We understand it, we get it, but the dynamics of a locker room, man, that is the quickest way to fracture it, because he has old linemen on his team looking at him say that. And look, I know the relationship between them is better than the one that we see perception from the outside, but I just, that rubbed me the wrong way. That rubbed me the absolute wrong way. And I don't think that's how Russ moves on from the Seattle Seahawks. I don't know if it's something that he wanted to say publicly to put a message to them, but you also got to think about the guys that's hearing you say that look at you as the leader, look at you as the face of the franchise. And I will admit, I could be looking at it wrong, but I'm telling y'all right now, when I heard that played by Russell Wilson, that did not sit well with me on behalf of the guys that are up there trying to protect him from getting hit.
Yeah, it's an interesting point. Russell Wilson, by the way, has been sacked 394 times in his career. That's the most in a player's first 9 seasons since the 1970 merger. As Mina said, some of it's on him, some of it's on the O-line. Yeah. Adam, what else do you want to add?
Marcus, let's not make the mistake of saying that somebody is not going to go somewhere. Because there were enough people that said the same thing about Tom Brady, and he went to Tampa Bay. Okay? Now, if Russell is going to go somewhere, and let's be very clear, Seattle doesn't want to move on from him. We got all that. But let's just say if he were to go somewhere, he's going to have to do some unpleasant things and say some unpleasant things and deliver some unpleasant messages and kind of man up a little bit.
That's the truth.
And so if he's poking the bear already, I think that's an indication of what he might be willing to do going forward, which is what he would have to do if he wants to shoot his way out of town. But don't say that somebody's not going anywhere, because that doesn't happen in the NFL.
Yeah, you know what? That's actually proof of Adam Schefter's love for Marcus Spears, because he's like, I'm going to make sure that my man doesn't look wrong here if something happens. Mina, let's get into the finances of this, though. Is it even possible financially, when you look at the cap for Seattle, for Russell Wilson to be traded?
So, having just listened carefully to my much wiser colleague, Adam Schefter, I'm not going to say Russell Wilson's never moving. I will not say that. But I will say it would be bonkers from a cap perspective for Seattle. We're talking about a $39 million cap hit if they traded him. I don't care what kind of package you get of picks for him. The only reason you take that kind of hit in exchange for a haul is if you think your team is a disaster. Frankly, Houston might be considering that right now. That's a terrible football team. Seattle is not a terrible football team. So from a team perspective, this would be a terrible decision.
Adam, last word.
Well, again, we're in the offseason where teams are taking cap hits. The Rams took a $22 million cap hit. The Eagles are prepared to take a $30 million cap hit. We are in unprecedented waters, and the more that things change, the more likely they're going to continue to keep on changing.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.